I'm at the Strawbell ADU project, and we are ready to install our first level of Adobe Floor or Earthen Floor. I'm going to show you how we made our plaster mixes, both in a wheelbarrow by hand and in the concrete mixer, and what we did to get ready to install our earthen floor. So with our subfloor layer, it's just a compactable road base, and we went around kind of misting it, getting it moist, and tamping it down, compacting it into place. That's about 2 to 3 inches thick, that first layer. As we were putting that in place, we had a level set up, a laser level set up, and we were going around and just checking the level of the floor roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect at that level, but we're checking to make sure that there's not any real big dips or anything in the floor. So at this stage, there's going to be a couple of walls, interior walls, that haven't been built yet. And one of the tricky things about an earthen floor is like, how do you install and how do you attach your interior walls to a floor? So we've put in what I call these sleeper blocks. So these are pressure treated 2x4 blocks, and we measured out where the wall is going to go, and we set up a laser level and measured how high the tops of these blocks need to be for the wall. We dug out a little bit of the subfloor underneath so that they could be at the right height that they needed, and then we used the laser level to lift up. We used half-inch plywood on top of them. The wall will actually sit on the half-inch plywood. We actually sort of made up an initial mix of Adobe just by hand so that we could kind of put it around these blocks to lock them in place. And then tomorrow, when we actually do the Adobe floor, the entire Adobe floor will cover over the block, and the plywood now acts as a gauge for the top of our Adobe floor. So we'll bring up the Adobe floor over the block and up to this height. So when we are screeding the floor, this will sort of act as a gauge as we go across. We set up a couple of ramps on our outside doors so that it will be easy for the wheelbarrows to come in with their full loads of wet Adobe mix. And we set up a laser level again. We set it up on our toe-up board where the straw bales are going to go later. And it doesn't matter where you set your laser level, but you just as long as you set it kind of in the same place each time. So we set up a laser level, and we created some storyboards. So we marked lines on these 2x4s, and this line will tell us, as we're installing the earthen floor tomorrow, how high up we need to go. So there's a black line that we drew on this board, and we'll use this as we're putting in the Adobe floor. We'll just be able to set it up on the Adobe floor. The laser level will be set up as well, and when the Adobe floor is at the height that we need it to be, then that black line will line up with the laser level. So it's just a way for us to get a nice even floor tomorrow as we're installing the Adobe floor. And now I'm going to show you how to make up a mix of Adobe floor, first by hand and then in a concrete mixer. So we are going to mix up our floor Adobe 2 different ways. We need just a small amount right now, so we're going to mix it up in a wheelbarrow and just kind of mix it by hand using shovels and such. So we've got our tools here. We've got straw that we're going to put into it. We have our recipe. We're using 3 parts of a sand rock that comes from a local quarry. It's already got enough clay in it already, so we're just using sand rock with the clay already in it. We're using 3 parts of that to 2 parts of straw, water to taste. We're looking for something like a wet oatmeal. And we are adding like 1/4 of a part of an old sand rock that we have that has no clay in it, just to add a little bit more sand for compression strength. So we're going to start mixing this up in our wheelbarrow. So this is the part that we're using for this wheelbarrow, since we just need a smaller amount. Okay, that's one part. So I'm going to go ahead and put some water in the wheelbarrow to begin with. Okay, and we'll dump this in. And start mixing it around. We'll probably need that short shovel. That would be helpful for mixing this probably. Kind of start mixing a little bit. right, that's 3 parts. And this sand has been sifted to 1/2 inch or less. So our biggest pieces are 1/2 inch. Okay, it's looking pretty soupy. I'm gonna start adding in straw, and then we can kind of keep stirring it as the straw comes in. So we're adding in this straw. This will help give it a lot more strength too. So the sand gives it compression strength, and the straw actually gives it tensile strength. This particular Adobe lift we're going to be lifting up is going to be pretty thick, like 2 inches thick at the most. So that's why we only sifted it to about 1/2 inch rock. If we were doing a really thin plaster, you would want to sift it to a thinner rock size. You can only go as thin as the size that you've sifted it to. That's 1 part straw. We might have to get in with our hands at some point here. And let me add a little bit more water. The straw will soak up water. All right, so we might need to get in with our hands now and just kind of make sure that we're getting everything. We want to get the clumps out of the sand. We want all of the straw fully coated and fully integrated. And it's a good exfoliant for your hands because it's really rocky and sandy. We're going with a really straw-heavy mix here because that sand rock that we got is kind of more clay than I would want. So we're adding more straw, and that will allow us to make it up thicker. It will cut down on the cracking. I'm gonna add some more water to this. Make it a little bit soupier. Okay. It is definitely straw heavy. But this will go down onto our whole subfloor here, and it will get troweled on with some wooden floats, wooden trowels, and smoothed out, compressed pretty well, and smoothed out. And this will be our main layer for the rest of the build until the very end, when we'll come back with a really fine finish coat. That's like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick. So we're ready to go. So we wound up just making a bunch of Adobe mix so that we're just ready and we have it in place and ready to go tomorrow when our friends and family come over to help out. We made 6 wheelbarrows full of Adobe and we laid them down on some plastic here and covered it with plastic so that it doesn't dry out too much overnight. But this way we'll be ready to go without having to worry about mixing stuff first thing in the morning. And I'm pretty excited. It's gonna be a fun day. So stay tuned to see how it goes.